Hey there, tubers. Today I thought I'd do the 200-hour review on my CT5555 tractor. I've hit yet another minor milestone. Got 200 hours on it, and I thought I'd do a kind of a quick review on what I like and don't like about it. I did a review at 100 hours, and for the most part everything's the same. I've got a couple little things to add to it. So the 100-hour one, I'll link it below, ended up being quite a long video, so I'm going to try and make this substantially shorter and just kind of briefly hit on everything that I hit on that. So to start with, I'll start at the front of the tractor here. This bucket has been fantastic. I've used it a bunch, and you can really hardly tell that I have. The paint is great. It hasn't come off like I expected it to, and I thought initially that metal looked a little thin. I wasn't sure how it'd hold up, but it has held up great. The quick change is an absolute must in my opinion. I use that all the time. I love it. I am also pleased that they put this mount up front for a option for a third remote. And normally the tractors, I see them over here tucked in with all the other hydraulics. This one's out front, easy to access, and one of these days I will actually get a third function put up here. The loader itself has been great. It doesn't lift what I expected it to, and I've talked to Bobcat about it, and they said they'd do some research and get back to me, which they haven't yet. But so I'm a little disappointed in its lifting capacity. I don't know whether it's an issue with the hydraulics on the tractor, or whether it just doesn't lift what they say in the specs. The weight of the loader itself is included in its lift capacity, so once you subtract that off, it's definitely not going to lift what they say it will in the loader, in the bucket itself. But other than that, the connections are back here by the window. I wish they were in a different spot. The Coyote version has them up on the front here, which I think is a lot better for access wise. With this one, depending on how you use the loader, this will hit the window, and normally I have it zip tied up. I just put the loader back on, so I haven't done that yet. But this does rub on the hood if you don't. And it doesn't take much. I don't think you can see it in the video, but it has marred the paint a little bit just where it rubs from everyday use. The loader comes off very easy. It's just pull this pin out and put your legs down and back away. It's very simple. So sticking with the front, the lights are very good. There's 8 lights forward here, 2 in the back, and I've worked at night, and it's very decent lighting. They advertised it as LED lighting. The only LED lights that this tractor has are the 2 low beam lights on the front here, but I guess as long as they have something that's LED, they can advertise it that way. But no complaints on the lighting. One complaint I do have that hasn't been resolved yet is the hood itself from day one has been pinched here between the cab and the hood. And I noticed the noise when I first brought this tractor home, but I couldn't pinpoint it. But now that it's worn the paint off and actually started to wear through the hood metal, I now know what it is. And it's just pinched in there up against the cab. The dealerships have been out, they've looked at it. They're not sure how to resolve it. One of the mechanics did say that it's possible that they put the cab on crooked, but yet another one said no, it's got to be that the hood's tweaked. But we're going on 6 months now and they still don't have a solution for it, so I get to listen to that every day. And then hood opening access is okay. It's down underneath here, and with the loader on it's kind of a pain to get to, so I'll just set the camera down for a second and get this open. Okay, now that it's open, you can see that access to the battery, air cleaner, coolant reservoir, relays is phenomenal. It's just all right here, ready and waiting. The engine itself, I was kind of leery about getting something with the DPF. I've got other heavy equipment that has it, and I've had some problems, and I thought, well, if the big ones are having it, the little ones are gonna have it too. But happily, I have had no issues whatsoever with this. And it could be just the way I'm using it, I'm not sure, but it hasn't regened for any other reason than every 40 hours the computer automatically does a regen. So you can almost predict when it's going to happen. 40, 80, 120, 160, 200. And it's within a tenth or two of that time. So when you're getting close to something divisible by 40, I kind of expect that it's going to go into regen. And I try to time it with something I'm doing that I can run the tractor for at least 20 minutes, because the regen process is 20 minutes long. So other than the every 40-hour versions, it hasn't regened for any other reason. So the way I'm using it is adequate enough to keep the filter clean. Another issue I have happened not very long ago, but it was this summer when it was very warm out. And I'm not sure why it happened, and neither is the dealership. But I was running it and I heard a strange sound, and I couldn't pinpoint it until the next morning when I did my oil check and overall engine compartment check. You can see right down here my fan blades are a little shorter than they're supposed to be. Well, over on the far side there, some of the fan shroud is missing. It's just in one spot. And all I can think of is that it was around 100 the day it happened, that it was warm enough that that plastic kind of warped a little bit and was enough to get into the fan. Once again, Bobcat isn't sure what to do about it. Since it really doesn't affect anything right now, they don't really want to do anything, which I somewhat agree with. You know, it's not affecting anything, but still, for a new tractor, that shouldn't have happened. But other than that, the engine has run really well. This front axle is very beefy. It definitely packs the weight that it has to very well. I was concerned about the tie rods being on the front, but that is a non-factor. This front end is phenomenal in my opinion. The turning radius I can't ask for anything better. In fact, that's probably my #1 favorite thing about this tractor, is just how sharp it turns. One issue I've got is up here on the front, you've got a grease zerk, and on the back you've got a grease zerk. And what I do when I grease this is I lift the axle off the ground so that I can oscillate it as I'm greasing. Just something I do. There's no requirement to do that. Back one greased just fine. Front one, when I got up here, I put 2 pumps in it, and it locked this axle up from oscillating. I could jump up and down on the tire here, and I could not get it to move. So I took that zerk out, and as soon as I took that zerk out, it blasted all the grease that was in there right out. So there's some kind of a pressure issue. Once again, had Bobcat take a look at it. They didn't know why it was doing it or what to say other than quit greasing it, which I kind of laughed at, but that is their standing opinion. If it's going to do that, just don't grease it. So I haven't greased it for a while. I can still grease the back one, but every time I try this one, it still locks up. So not quite sure what's going on there, but we'll just have to see how, as time progresses here, maybe it'll wear in and start taking grease. Let's see. You know, good access to the hydraulic filter. That's absolutely great when it comes to changing that. Back here on the back, I've added 2 additional remotes, and as you can see, they're stacked right there. And I like the access to them. There are some other tractors out there that when you add remotes, you put them in strange locations, like back behind over there or something like that, and they're not easy to get to. These are right there out in the open, and really a simple process to install. I like the external lift arms cylinders. That way, you know, if there was an issue, you can get to them. You don't have to tear the whole rear end apart. I also like these bar style sway blocks. They have a ton of different adjustments on them. Let me put this down. I'll show you another feature that I love, is this right here. It makes hooking up so much easier. But you've got just a bunch of different holes here, so you can adjust it to just about any implement you can think of. I've also got the adjustable lift arms, which between the external lift and the adjustable lift arms, I can't believe I haven't had a little tractor that's had that before. It's just a must, in my opinion, now. So I'm really happy with that stuff. Put the third wiper on. That wasn't too bad of a job. I'm trying to think of all the different things here. I'm sure I'm missing a few. Oh, back up here on the engine. I had to adjust my air conditioning belt a while back, and I found that it was at the end of its extension, and it was a brand new belt. So after putting up a video about it, a couple of people have commented that their machines came that way too. So it's not just my machine, but apparently they have the wrong size belt from the factory on the air conditioning unit. So I was able to adjust it this one time, but it's now out of adjustment. So if I get any more stretch out of that belt, I'm going to have to take that belt off and get the next size smaller put back on. The mirrors. I wasn't sure that I would like having these giant mirrors right here close to where you can get in and out. But I actually do use them quite a bit. And you can move them forward. The way I've got them moved forward now is they don't really interfere with me getting in and out of the cab. So I've come to like them. As for getting in and out of the cab, it's really quite easy. Nice, good access in. Now the only thing that I don't like is I like to go out head first, and in which case when I do that, my thigh hits the steering wheel here, and then it'll hit this over here. So I've adjusted, and the best way for me is to back out of it like I came in. Not a big deal, but I just had to re-educate myself on how to get in and out. Now this side is great. This other side, not so much. I am glad that they did put a step and a door on this side. It just makes accessing anything in here and cleaning so much nicer. But as you can see, there's not a lot of room to wedge in between there to get in and out. So unless your kids are running the machine, don't plan on getting in and out this side. But access wise, it's phenomenal. Now you notice I have a bag of tools here. That's one downside, is that this thing has no tool storage, or really any place that you can put tool storage on it. Over there in the corner, they consider that their toolbox. Unless you just had a pair of pliers and a screwdriver, I don't know what more that could really hold. So I'll go back around the other side, we'll climb in, go over the inside. Alright, so inside here, the instrument panel is basic, but it does everything that you need it to do. You've got all your warning lights in here, and what I like is that during the daylight, even though they're there, you can't see them. Some panels, you see them all, whether they're on or off. You've got your hazards and your four-wheel drive down there, very easy. Horn, headlights, turn signals, everything. Very convenient. One thing that I wasn't sure of at the 100 hour, because I had bought this tractor in the winter and I hadn't gotten to the summer when I hit the 100 hours, was whether or not the air conditioning was going to be adequate. With all this glass in here, I was very worried about it getting so hot during the summer that I wouldn't be able to keep it cool. Well, that is a non-factor. Not only does this thing have a phenomenal heater, but the air conditioner works absolutely fantastic. There's plenty of days that it was around 100 and I'd open the door and just get that waft of heat coming out, and I expect to sit in there for a good hour before it starts cooling down enough to be comfortable. But within 5 minutes you're back to a nice cool temperature, and within 10 minutes I have to turn this thing all the way down to the lowest setting because it just gets so cold in here. So kudos for that. Now I did comment before that these controls aren't convenient for me, and that's probably more my stature than anything. suppose if you're a tall guy, these are probably just perfect. But I'd like this quadrant to be back just a little bit. As for the remotes now, they're perfect. They're right where they need to be handy. The 3-point access is good. Draft, so-so. It's up under the armrest, but I don't use the draft much, so it doesn't really affect me. Now, as for the functionality here, you've got the cruise PTO. I don't use that very much at all, and in fact I'm not overly fond of it. I was doing some more mowing earlier this summer, and the place I was mowing was inconsistent. I had patches of very heavy, thick weeds, and then had lighter grasses. And I tried this cruise for the mowing I was doing, and what would happen is I'd set it at 2500 RPMs, which is the PTO speed, and I'd be going along just fine, and when I hit those thick green patches of weeds, it would draw the engine RPMs down. And these patches weren't very big. They were no bigger than the mower itself, so I was in and out of them very quickly. But it was enough to pull the engine down to around 2000 RPMs, and there's enough delay between it getting pulled down and the computer telling it that it needs to speed back up, that it would add fuel just as I was coming out of them, which it was coming out of them, it was going back to the easy mowing that it had been, and the RPMs would just spike. And this thing's governed out at 2750, and I had a couple spikes up to 3100. So the delay between the computer telling it or reacting to what its inputs are was just enough that it doesn't stay at a consistent speed. And I'm able to control better with the throttle myself than what this cruise PTO does. Now, it's fine if you're in consistent materials, but that's just not the case for me. Now, the cruise control for the tractor itself, I use all the time. And I wish that instead of having the decrease increase button just set up for the PTO, I wish it was set up for ground speed. That would be of great use to me. You know, I set the pedal. Sometimes I'm not the most accurate with what I exactly wanted to do, and I'd like to be able to bump it down or up a little bit, but that's just not the case. Now, the reaction time on the pedals is set right here. You want instant response or delayed response. You adjust accordingly. Now, I keep it up here in the rapid response just simply because early on I was running it down in the lower side, and when you work up close against buildings or around something of value, when you let off the pedal and you've got the delayed reaction, it doesn't stop immediately. It just slowly comes to a stop. And there were several times that I got closer than I wanted to a few objects. Didn't do any damage, but it scared me. So I keep it up here in the rapid response. Now, the link pedal, I do like that. I don't use it that often, but what that does is it links the pedals down there to the throttle. So as you give it more pedal forward or reverse, it increases the engine RPMs appropriately. The no stall feature I was really looking forward to. I do a fair amount of loader work, and on previous tractors that was one thing that I occasionally did, was stall the tractor out because I was trying to take too big of a bite. So I was looking forward to this eliminating that problem for me, but it doesn't. It's like the PTO cruise, where if you go and stab into a pile of dirt, it'll draw the RPMs down, and if you let off the pedal at the same time it's adding fuel, you'll spike the RPMs above the governed RPM range. And if you're not taking your foot off quick enough, it will actually kill the tractor. So I guess for light use it's adequate, but for the heavy use that I do with it, it doesn't do what I expected it to. Now with the regen button, I've not had to touch that at all. The calibration button, I did have the dealer come out and calibrate the transmission one time for me, because I did get a calibration light up on the dash and the tractor wouldn't move for about 5 seconds till that light went out. So they thought, well, it's a calibration issue, we'll come recalibrate it. And this is a dealer only button, so they used it, and as far as I can tell, it has eliminated the light coming on. I probably got it 6 or 7 times before they worked on it, and now I haven't gotten it at all. But whatever they did caused these to be inconsistent on speed. So if I could put it to a certain point and just held it, it would go, and then it cuts out and it'll go and it'll cut out. And I talked to them about it. They said that usually when they do a calibration, it takes 3 or 4 tries to get everything calibrated properly. So they have yet to be back out to eliminate that problem for me, but they say they'll get to it when they get time. Hopefully that's sooner rather than later. Now the PTO, it's a electric engagement, and I've been worried about this from the day I got the tractor. When you engage it, it is a positive engagement. There's no subtlety to it at all. It's just engaged right now. And my concern was that could damage the transmission or a gearbox on the implement that you're using. And I suppose that they probably figured it out when they were designing the internals on the transmission, that they could withstand it. But I did tear out a gearbox on my brush hog. I used it 3 times once I got this tractor, and on the 3rd time I noticed that my gearbox started to leak. I took it off and found that internally it had damaged gears, and that was a new brush hog. So the only thing that I can say is that this is what caused it. It's such a dramatic engagement that I knew something had to give eventually. And unfortunately, well, I guess you could say fortunately it was the gearbox on the brush hog rather than the gearbox on this tractor. But not real keen on the engagement of the PTO on this. So when it comes to that, I don't use the auto feature at all. I just leave it in manual so that I turn it on and off myself when I want to. The auto will do it on its own, so that could increase the likelihood of tearing a gearbox out. Rear defrost, nice feature, use it occasionally. Wipers and lights, that's all good. As for the stereo system, it comes with the speakers already installed. I installed the radio and have had no issues whatsoever with that. Rear window opens fine. I'm not going to open it now because when you do, any dirt that's up above here will fall right on your head. But I don't really open it much, so. Then on this side, gear selector, no armrest. The reason they don't put an armrest in, and they said it would interfere with this. Well, I'm not sure, but I would guess if I put one on, it'd be right in here and wouldn't interfere with it. So this winter, that'll be my project, designing and getting one put on here. Other than that, this seat itself is not the most comfortable seat if you're in here for a few hours. It's not bad, but if you spend much time in here, you definitely know that this is a solid mounted seat. So I wish they had an air ride option or something like that. In here is your fuse box. Not the most convenient to get to. I made these little liners because this is just plastic and stuff slides around. Got to pop 3 of these off, and then inside there's 3 screw heads. Not horrible, but it's not a quick process to pull that off. The safety features, I guess it's like anything. I'm not for them or I'm not against them. I know why they do it, but trying to remember to put the brake on when you get out is sometimes very hard for me. And as soon as you get out of the seat, if that brake's not on or if that shifter's not in neutral, tractor dies. I wish there was a different option, but that's the way it is. So before I forget, there is a cigarette lighter here, 12 volt, and it's very convenient. I just plug my phone in there, set my phone in here, and I'm good to go. Now for the side windows, this is kind of a pain, but this is plastic. It doesn't feel real sturdy, and once you start hitting any kind of bumps, this thing just instantly pops closed. So I don't use it at all. I just leave them closed. I'm sure there's some guys that enjoy the fresh air during certain parts of the year, but I'll just stick with the HVAC system. So one thing on this shifter that I have happen on a fairly regular basis is trying to get it into gear. So I started the tractor here to show you, but you would think you could just pull it into gear. It'll go directly into high, but medium, it just doesn't want to go into. So I have to give it one direction or the other, a little pedal, and it'll go in. I'm not sure, I've never had any problems going into low range, but there again, I can't get it to go into mid-range. It comes right out, goes right into high, but the mid-range, just unless you have the pedal just right, it doesn't want to go in. Not sure if anybody else has had that problem, but it's an annoyance more than anything. I don't think it's anything to really worry about, but Just thought I'd see if other people have had that issue. So overall, I'm still happy with it. There's a few things that I hope Bobcat comes back with some solutions on, because if they don't, then my like for this model, or at least this tractor in general, is going to wane. And I really want to like this tractor, but for only having 200 hours on it, the dealership has been out here quite a few times and has not come up with solutions to some of my issues. Really, the front axle and the hood are major issues in my opinion. They don't seem to be too concerned about them or with my happiness. So if that continues to be the way it is, I'm probably going to not recommend this tractor in the future. But for right now, I do like it, and I would still recommend, if you're in the market for this size of tractor, that this one is a decent one. Like I said, if they figure these little things out, I will be tickled pink, but they haven't as of yet. So if you've run into any problems like that, or got some different ideas on things, go ahead and throw them in the comments below. I look forward to seeing if my tractor's unique to some of these, or whether this is a common problem. And if you have any other questions or comments, just leave them below. Otherwise, I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.